I believe that we must try to limit the war to Korea for these vital reasons: to make sure that the precious lives of our fighting men are not wasted, to see that the security of our country and the free world is not needlessly jeopardized, and to prevent a third world war. That war can come if the communist rulers want it to come. But this nation and its allies will not be responsible for its coming. We do not want to widen the conflict. We will use every effort to prevent that disaster. And in so doing, we know that we are following the great principles of peace, freedom, and justice.
Okay, 100% no, 100%. The only reason why America, when these aliens crashed, they changed their foreign policy. They spilt the beans. When you've got a little alien sitting up in bed in Area 51 saying all this stuff, and they're 10,000 years ahead of you, and you listen to them. Don't let life on this planet end, say the aliens. So why did aliens crash on purpose in Roswell Desert in 1947? Reason, well, a couple of reasons. First, war in heaven. Aliens suffer from war in heaven, the same as human race. We're in God's image. They aren't, but they still suffer from war in heaven, which is when life on this planet ends, your soul ends. So saith God, okay, where is all this going? What am I getting to? What did the aliens say to the Americans when they crashed? Get into Revelations twice? Pretty much.
The church was decorated with frescoes in the middle of the 14th century. Recently, the question has been asked, do the frescoes of Tuscany represent spaceships? Yes, they do look a bit like spaceships. In the first ship, we see a man seated, his hand on a stick shift. He is definitely observing the second spaceship. Please note the aerodynamic form. Jets are clearly seen. The spectators are protecting their faces with their hands. They are obviously terrified. There is no explanation for the origin or purpose of these fantastic pictures.
Now, anyway, first time America got itself into Revelations was Vietnam. Now, what Jesus saw, he saw men in flak jackets, yes, he did. He saw, I've already put some scripture on so you can see it directly where I got it from. But, yeah, the helicopter here, well, Jesus didn't see a helicopter. What he saw was a helicopter, but this is a man that's never seen anything modern in his life, so it's a scary thing, but he wouldn't know what to call it. The best way he could call it was a type of insect that looked like a locust. Okay, now we're up to the second time America got itself into Revelations twice. The two twin towers. You see, after Vietnam, there were two more terrors to come. Now, it's actually one terror, as you know. 9/11 is considered one incident, but there were two towers, and as you know, both of them were, well, I don't need to explain to you about 9/11, but that's what that means. That's two terrors there. Both buildings collapsed, both buildings had people in them, so on and so on. I don't need to go into details there. And that is the final time America is mentioned in Revelations. But keep in mind, this was done on purpose, not by accident, because they had to do it on purpose. And what's more, what I'm trying to say to you is from aliens crashing, plain English, in the desert in 1947, this information came to them from these guys, but you don't know why. You don't know why America would go to all this trouble to put itself into scripture twice. Now from this I'll give you a clue. From this they go on to rule, and to rule with a iron rod with fire coming out of it, meaning bombs and guns. They rule this planet for the next best part of 10,000 years. When I say rule, I mean all countries rule themselves. It's just, you know, they're there. You know, just like they're there today, you know. Some call them the police of the world. Well, it's true, they kind of are the police of the world, and what's more, they've made themselves be the police of the world. Alright, now, the main reason, keep in mind that the Twin Towers had to come down, because, plain English, you wouldn't have a pit, so for them to come down in a way, like if planes had crashed into them like they did, and they hadn't set charges in the buildings, the towers wouldn't have come down. They might have been brought down later and all that, and they had to be teared down, but not that way, not after the short time that the planes hit the buildings, meaning it was only a short time before they fell down. No building ever falls down like that, it's impossible.
And so people began to look more closely at the video of the collapse, and they began to see more evidence that something else was going on. That the buildings had been taken down not by exploding planes, but by explosive charges planted in the building. In a professional demolition, you see what are called squibs, where the explosives occasionally vent their explosive force out the side of the building. And sure enough, when you look, you can see squibs going off all over.
The job of the shape charge is to cut steel H-beams.
The way we do this is by cutting the beam at an angle, which through a series of beams cut at the same angle will tend to make the building shift over and walk.
The physicists and engineers began to find evidence of large amounts of molten steel pouring out of the side of the building, pouring down into the basement, creating incredible temperatures, 1100 degrees at the top of the rubble pile 6 weeks later.
Out still on the rubble, it's still, I believe, 1100 degrees. The guy's boots just melt within a few hours.
This is how expensive they were. Oh, it's unbelievable. And this is 6 weeks later, almost 6 weeks later. And as we get closer to the center of this, it gets hotter and hotter. It's probably 1500 degrees. We've had some small windows into what we thought was a door at some point, and it looked like an oven, you know. It was just roaring inside. And it's just a bright reddish orange color. See that stuff he's pulling out? What was that? We're gonna hold off on the water. See the stuff he's pulling out? Yeah. Red hot. If we hit it too much steam, you won't be able to see what he's doing. Great.
Okay, one more point. All this couldn't happen unless America did what it did. In other words, you can't have struggle in Second Roman Empire mean the same thing, but you can't have the Second Empire. You can't have a Second Roman Empire without Scripture, without there being the prophecy. So all America done was save your souls. They saved your souls. They sacrificed the lives of Americans, literally, the powers that be in America and so on, for the souls that are living, the souls that have lived, and the souls that will live for the next 10,000 years. That's what America's done. That's an important point there. Now, you might not respect that, but the Lord does. The Lord respects it, doesn't like it, but like I said, all the people that have died in the past are in heaven. And this is in the time of war in heaven, war in heaven. And even though there's a prophecy, you're missing the point. It was thanks to America that this came about. Because of America, your souls are safe for the next 9,500 years, the best part of 10,000 years. All because of America. You can't have your name crossed off the book of life in this time. No one. No one. Not in the past, not now, and not for another 1,000 years. Something happens in 1,000 years. That's something else. That's another story. I'll tell you about it another time. Your souls are safe.